All right, so I guess we can jump into our first loose topic. Now, we have two loose topics this week because the stories were a little bit lighter. So we're going to kind of, split it up, two smaller topics here and just see what we get out of them. So the first one is going to be the importance of exclusives. Now, what I mean by this is different companies have different value propositions on their consoles. Nintendo specifically is a prime example of offering specific games that they make themselves that you can only get on their console. You are not playing Mario Galaxy anywhere else. And I know some people are going to be in the comment section like, hey, what about the weird NVIDIA thing they did in China? Different. We're not talking about that. I'm just talking about if you want to play Zelda, if you want to play Mario, if you want to play Kirby or a Yoshi game, you're going to a Nintendo console, period.
Yep.
If you want to play God of War, you're going to a PlayStation console. However, Microsoft has adapted a different technique, whereas basically play what you want, where you want. And there are still light exclusive, but for the most part, if you could play it on Xbox, you could play it on PC for the most part, especially with Game Pass being available on PC. So these are kind of two different approaches to the exclusive game. So the question is, to have a successful console in the modern era, how important are exclusives really? Is kind of an ambiguous play wherever you want, ease of use type situation, kind of like a half Stadia, half Microsoft approach, going to be advantageous going forward, do you think? Or is the traditional model of having an experience you can only play in one place going to be the saving grace of consoles, similar to a Nintendo or a Sony? So that's my question to you is, how important are exclusives really?
So I think exclusives going forward that have roots is where it matters. And what I mean by that is the franchises that have people been playing for years. In a world, let's say, it's no longer exclusive, but the Final Fantasy, let's say, was still exclusive to the Sony systems, which it was for a while. From 7 forward, if you wanted to play Final Fantasy, you had to get a Sony system. PS1, then you had to get a PS2. Those were 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, and before that they were exclusive 12. To Nintendo, so.
And they were exclusive to Nintendo, so it does matter. Nowadays it's hard to matter because now it's really only first party exclusives that exist. Sometimes you do have like timed exclusives, like Final Fantasy VII's timed for 1 year for some weird reason, and it works in those instances, but sometimes it doesn't work in other instances. So when Xbox One was doing that weird exclusivity with Tomb Raider, and they didn't want to talk about it, that it was timed, people were up in arms. So it's all weird that I think the franchises that have roots in those systems matter. It doesn't matter that there's that new PS5 game with the guys with the suit of armor, the Godfall? No, it's not Godfall, is it?
Greedfall?
Yeah, there you go. Or whatever it was, the new one coming out.
Yeah, I forget the name of it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, with the armors and stuff like that. So
yeah.
that game's not going to be selling systems. But God of War 2 will sell systems, or whatever they call the next God of War. So if it wasn't for that history, the roots that it is in the place, God of War is the Sony property, and that if you want to play God of War, as of right now, you have to get a Sony system. So I think it only matters in those kind of aspects. Moving forward, I just don't think you can convince people to get a system for a certain game, and that kind of hurts Xbox in a way. So Xbox One, before they did the Play Anywhere initiative, before they did the Xbox Game Pass initiative and the Game Pass PC Ultimate, they were hoping people would buy Xbox One for Halo and Gears. That's their two hardcore titles, Halo, Gears. And we saw that was not true. Nintendo thought, they thought they could repeat history. They want to play Mario, Zelda, they gotta get a Wii. The Wii U did not sell, so people did not buy the Wii U for their exclusives. They had some good games on Wii U, and obviously we're seeing them ported on Switch where they're finding new life. But Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze and the Mario 3D World or Land, I forgot which one they were called, and Mario Maker and all these games that were super popular, those were exclusives. You can't play Mario Maker anywhere else. You can't play Yoshi. What was the Yoshi game on Wii U? Woolly World? Something like that?
Yes, I believe so.
You can't play those games anywhere else, but yet they did not sell the systems that they needed to. So moving forward, I think exclusives are going to exist, obviously due to first-party contracts and stuff like that. I don't think they're that important anymore. People are going to play where they want to play. When Xbox started turning things around and had this super powerful system, then you started selling consoles. Even though they were going head to head with, the Spider-Mans, the God of War, Detroit at the time, which was exclusive, and later we still have The Last of Us and all these other games still coming out. But their sales numbers are way more respectable because they have a powerful system and how much more friendly it is to access your games. And I know there's other features like backwards compatible that go into it, but I think expecting that just because Naughty Dog made a new game, let's say after The Last of Us, just because Naughty Dog is making a new game on PS6 or whatever, are you going to buy a whole system just for that one game? And I know some people will, but why do that when you can get another system for the same price and play the games better, bigger variety, and all these things? You're going to buy the system that you're more comfortable with and you're more familiar with. So obviously, when it comes to this new generation, I would lean towards a PlayStation because that's where I've always gamed. But, what if I can't get a PlayStation? What if there was no titles? Are you only buying that system for the exclusives? So they're important in a more retro, nostalgic fan base way than they are in a gameplay way. Because, to be honest, most of those experiences you get on PlayStation, gameplay wise, are recreated elsewhere on other companies and stuff like that. But it's some of that, first party magic that Nintendo has, Sony has, and Microsoft has to an extent that helps make those decisions and makes those, because, just being on the other side, I've seen people when they're like, well, why would I get an Xbox when they only have Halo and Gears when, PlayStation has Jak and Daxter and all these other games which were exclusive at the time, and, God of War is always the big one, SOCOM used to be a big one. So it's weird to think that no longer is important. People just want the better system now. And that's just such a loaded question. So it's interesting to think the exclusivity age is coming to an end, and we're starting to see that even with Sony. Nintendo's the only one that's really being like super greedy in a sense. I mean, they were all over Twitter, people were like jumping for joy that Breath of the Wild was $40 like 2 weeks ago on sale. That game is old now. Like, that game is years old, and you're telling me you're excited that it went down $20 when you can get God of War, which in my opinion is a better game, for like $10. So it's this weird thing where it depends on how the companies themselves are using their exclusivities and how they're respecting the buyer's choice. But how important are they to you now, though?
Yeah, I mean, and you covered it pretty extensively, so great job on that response. But the main point, I think the takeaway is exclusives are incredibly important to a healthy ecosystem on a game console, but they're not the end-all be-all. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just a part of the puzzle. You need those. You need solid hardware. You need solid services. You need solid third-party support. And then you need exclusives on top of that. And unless you have kind of all of those different pieces, then you don't necessarily see the success that your console may want. We've seen consoles have part of it. We've seen consoles like the Vita have solid exclusives, decent hardware, but then other parts of it are failing. There's some hardware issues like the memory card that really screwed it up. There's a lack of services that really screwed it up. There was a lack of investment on the first party long term that screwed it up. You have the Wii U, that the hardware was functional. It had amazing exclusives, but the services were there and the lack of third-party support. Third-party support matters too. So you can have all the exclusives in the world, but if the latest Call of Duty, the latest Madden are not on your console, that's going to hurt you with those certain people who like to play those games, period. Mm-hmm. When you have the massive, Modern Warfare come out, and that's selling millions of units, and it's the talk of the town for, that couple months stretch that it comes out and right after. And that's not available on a Nintendo console. That can hurt you. Now, luckily, Nintendo, that third-party support problem is no longer so much of a thing. It's, for the most part, been remedied by all these older ports. That's really filled in that lack of a gap. But during that Wii U years, that really hurt them. Mm-hmm. Another example is even the Dreamcast, if you go back in time. That had some solid exclusives, too. But all the biggest third-party games were not getting supported. And then eventually Sega kind of pulled their support, and then it had nothing. And then that collapsed and got discontinued itself. So it's a healthy ecosystem. And now Microsoft's got pretty much everything but exclusives. And they're having trouble getting traction. So again, it seems like you need to have all these factors working in conjunction with one another to have the ecosystem as healthy as it can be. If any part of it fails, it's going to hurt you. If you don't have the exclusives, it hurts you. If you have all the exclusives but don't have the third-party support, it hurts you. So again, it's kind of like you need that perfect machination of all these different factors to have it work. And I could hear the argument go both ways depending on what company you look at, why one part is more important. You could be like, hey, services are the most important. You need to give customers a good reason to buy. That's why Xbox is in such good favor with people. And it's like, but look at the amount of consoles they moved. The numbers don't lie. That's not a good look. But then you could look at other companies in the past who had amazing exclusives, and the numbers were terrible too. So it could be argued in both ways depending on what generation you're looking at, what company they're looking at. And you have to look at it objectively, like, unless a company and a console get all of the things right, it's going to translate into sales, period.
Yeah, oh, sure. That's all I have to say on the subject. I didn't mean to go on such a rant.
Oh, but, no, it's good.
But it's true. You know, it isn't that one. Exclusives are important, but it's part of a bigger pie. You got to have all the components. Like you're saying, that's the perfect way to say it is you need all the components. You need to hit there's a checklist that you need to hit, and exclusive is one of those checkpoints you need to hit.
Yeah.